So what social media platforms should you use for your business? That is a great question. I'm here to tell you, even though they're all free, don't for a second think that they're free to you, because everything is going to use your time, and your number one resource as a business owner is what you put your time and attention into. So in this training, we're going to go through all the major social media platforms and talk about which ones I recommend and why I recommend each one. But right out of the gates, what I want to do is I want to say the number one rule, the biggest mistake that I've done and that I've seen so many other people do, is to try to do them all. It just doesn't work. Yes, when you see, a celebrity or a major personality or influencer, generally speaking, they do have all of the different channels. But remember, they've either already been famous and opened up those channels, or they've worked their way up. Because the worst thing that you can possibly do is try to be everywhere and then not succeed in any one particular channel. So my general advice before we get into specifics is don't do them all. Okay, so now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the 3 questions that you need to answer when making a decision as to what platforms to focus on. Question number 1 is just basically, what's your preference? What's your style? Are you somebody who likes doing video? Are you somebody who prefers to write? I've been told before that I have a face made for radio, so maybe I should be focusing on podcasts. I'm not sure, but just figure out what it is that you like is a big part of what's going to decide what you're going to do. Number 2 is, where are your customers? All right, if you're looking for teeny boppers, you're not going to be on LinkedIn, and if you're looking for B2B, you're a B2B kind of business, you're not going to be on Snapchat, right? So obviously go where the people are. And then number 3, and the most important question, what we'll focus a lot of time and attention on here, is how can you leverage these platforms? Okay, just know that if you're doing all this work separate, then you're a sucker and you're gonna spin your wheels and you're gonna waste a lot of time. So after we go through the different channels, we're gonna talk to you about specifically how do you get leverage, right? How do you multiply your effort and save as much time as you possibly can? Okay, cool. That said, let's talk about the specific channels. Right out of the gates, first one I wanna bring up is Facebook. So many people I talk to are like, Facebook is kind of old news. All right, here's what I'm going to tell you right now. When you look at the chart in regards to how many active Facebook users there are compared to every other platform in the world, everything else pales in comparison. Now, Facebook doesn't always show content of a business as much as it does for an individual, for example. Just know that when you're talking about Facebook, you have not only your business page or pages, but you also have your personal profile that you can leverage as well. So in my personal opinion, Facebook always has to be a part of the equation, whether you like it or not. Number 2 is Instagram. Obviously owned by Facebook. Instagram, as we know, is largely visual, but now a very, very big deal for video. I personally was very late to the Instagram game. One of the major advantages there, obviously, is that Instagram gives you more reach, meaning when you post something, you're more likely to have it seen by people, just because they don't. When you make a page on Instagram, or when you make a profile on Instagram, it's not like on Facebook, where Facebook is either a personal profile or it's a business page. You're just basically making a profile. So my only 2 cents when it comes to Instagram is that if you are building a brand that is going to have you or someone else, a face, if you will, of the brand, then you might want to focus your Instagram profile more on the individual than necessarily on the company or the brand. All right. 3rd major platform is YouTube. Now, YouTube is one of those that's, to me, an absolute no-brainer if you're going to be producing video content. We're going to talk in just a minute about why that can be a very smart thing to do if you plan ahead. But at the end of the day, if you are going to be making video content, YouTube's a no-brainer, but if you're not going to put significant time and energy into YouTube, again, it's just as much about what you don't do as it is what you do, okay? LinkedIn being the next stop. LinkedIn is one of those platforms that I think is a little bit of a sleeper. More and more people are starting to use LinkedIn. I'm seeing posts that are getting extreme reach, so it's one of those that if you're marketing to other business people, I think you have to be on LinkedIn. And this is something that, again, I'm getting late into the game on LinkedIn. but I'm seeing that they're getting more and more and more reach, and it's becoming more social, whereas before it was just a tool used for recruitment or whatever it is. But again, depends on what your business is. Next piece is podcasts. Podcasts are something I personally don't have a podcast. I've appeared on many podcasts. I can tell you what's great about podcasts is they can give you a tool, right? So there's two ends of this. You could be a guest on somebody else's, or you could host your own. The reality of it is hosting your own podcast, if you've got a lot of clout, is a very powerful thing that you can get a lot of traction in very quickly. But even if you don't have a lot of clout, I can tell you that I've personally had this sort of fear of like, oh, who am I and who's going to listen to what I have to say kind of thing. But what a podcast can do, and now that I'm appearing on more and more podcasts, I'm noticing that people are really using them not only to get more followers, but also to kind of climb the scale in regards to the connections. And, in business, you are who you associate with. So think about the possibility of a podcast, right? You can only do so many things at once, but as we're going to talk about in a minute, of the possibility of a podcast specifically as a tool, if you can interview people in your particular space, that could really help you get connected in a lot of ways other than just getting more followers. Beyond that, there's obviously a lot of different social channels out there. Snapchat is one that got very hot. TikTok, obviously, was all the rave. In my personal opinion, these are things that you do if these are things that specifically speak to your audience. If you think about your social media, and I can tell you this firsthand because I've screwed it up so much. I mean, here I am, been in business well over a decade, well into my 40s, and I'm just now starting on social media. But I have worked with a couple of very, very successful influencers, and I can tell you that the ones that have won are the ones that focus on just dominating one or two platforms, and then maybe do one or two others, but they really focus that energy like a laser as much as they possibly can. And now there's a lot of new platforms. Clubhouse is one, which is great for connecting, maybe even more so than making followers. But the key to all of these platforms, when you just lay them out on paper, and I literally would do that, I would draw them all out, right? Ask yourself those three questions again. What's my preference? What kind of content do I like to make? Where's my audience? And then how can I leverage? So what you want to do is you want to develop a strategy that's going to allow you to repurpose content. So for example, this video that you're seeing right now literally was just turn on a camera, right, and talk. I'm delivering this originally to my private Facebook group, right, to my beloved bot builders. But this will then be repurposed into a YouTube video. It'll be repurposed into an article that'll be posted in my blog and dispersed all over the web. They're going to make small clips from it and they're going to repurpose it. So for me, what I found is, because I like just turning on a camera and having a candid conversation like this, what I found is by doing Facebook Lives, right, then taking that content and have it turned into other ways, now I'm creating content in a way that I enjoy. I'm not feeling like I'm stuck behind a computer and typing, right? That's just me. Maybe you're different. And then I'm taking it and I'm going to repurpose it across all the different channels. So just make sure that when you get into social media, don't be afraid to say, I'm not doing, like Twitter, frankly, don't start a Twitter account just because you were told you had to have a Twitter account, okay? Only do the ones that you feel are necessary. Have one, maybe two primary focus, and those should be the ones that you're creating original content for, and then maybe one or two others, but just know that having 9 social media channels that none of them get any love whatsoever doesn't make a darn bit of difference. And the good news is, even if you're getting started late like me, remember that as you build content and you stack the content, it's going to become, I've seen this, Grant Cardone specifically, I've looked back at his old content and saw the pattern, and I've known it didn't start perfect, but it got better and better, and it stacked deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. Now I will throw out one more X factor for you. And that is this, is that even though social media content, it's all organic, it's all free, it's all can be consumed, the other factor is that if you are advertising on any of these platforms, so for example, we advertise on Facebook and on YouTube, by creating organic content, you actually assist your ads. And I've seen this firsthand after spending millions of dollars of ads a year, is that specifically, I need to give you an example on Facebook. When we stopped doing posts, our Facebook ad costs skyrocketed. But when we started creating quality organic content, they would lower our ad costs. Basically, remember that these are channels that they want engagement, they want quality, and they really want you to be a part of a community. So I'll just throw out advertising that even with your organic can make a difference. So if you're advertising on Facebook, then I'd highly recommend that you also do organic posts on Facebook. So with that said, I think that answers the question, which social media platforms should you be working on? Obviously a very personal answer that I'll let you decide for yourself, but put it on paper, map it all out, and then go take over the world. Nice going, champ, but we don't have to stop here. If you want to really be ambitious, click on one of these videos, or if you want to go the extra mile, hover over my head, click on subscribe, and then click the little bell. If you want some free goodies, go to swipemystuff.com, and I'll see you in the next training.